Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Southern Conservative Podcast. Well, there's a tragic update to the story from earlier in the week in which 4 police officers were shot near York, South Carolina early Tuesday morning. One officer, Detective Michael Doty of the York County Sheriff's Office, died yesterday. Doty had been with the department for 12 years. The 4 officers were responding to a domestic violence call late Monday night and into Tuesday morning when 47-year-old Thomas McCall shot at the officers and at a helicopter. McCall was wounded in the gunfire. The other 3 officers are expected to survive their injuries, and our thoughts and prayers certainly are with Doty's family and the entire police force there in York County. Well, the much-anticipated 2017 Fake News Awards were announced last night. The announcement drew so much attention that it crashed the website that featured the announcement, GOP.com. See, here's a countdown of the fake news stories going backwards from 10 down to 1. At number 10, this headline's from the Washington Post. New York Times guilty of large screw-up on climate change story. This story was about Donald Trump trying to suppress a draft of a congressionally mandated climate change report. The New York Times claimed that they were the first to obtain a copy of the report, when in fact the nonprofit Internet Archive had the report since January. At number 9, CNN falsely reported that James Comey would testify that he never told Donald Trump that he wasn't under investigation. Yet Comey testified that he indeed told Donald Trump that he was not under investigation. At number 8, Newsweek falsely reported that the Polish First Lady did not shake President Donald Trump's hand when he visited that country in July. At number 7, another headline from the Washington Post. 3 CNN employees resign over retracted story on Russia ties. CNN had reported that just 4 days before Trump's inauguration, Anthony Scaramucci met with the chief executive of a Russian investment fund called Direct Investment Fund in an attempt to establish Trump-Russia collusion. Turns out, it was absolutely false news. At number 6, CNN falsely edited a video of Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister, suggesting that Trump was overfeeding some fish. In reality, Trump was just following the Prime Minister's lead and started feeding the fish after the Prime Minister did. At number 5, the Washington Post falsely reported President Trump's sold-out crowd in a Pensacola, Florida rally last month. A reporter took a picture of the arena hours before the event had started, before people were able to file into the arena. You can see the dramatic differences in the 2 pictures on your screen there. In the middle of the rally, how many people were just jam-packed in that arena. At number 4, Time magazine falsely reported that President Trump had removed a bust of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office. This was a bust that President Barack Obama had put in the Oval Office, and Trump decided to keep it there. And as you can see from this photo, it's still there. At number 3, CNN botches dates and accurately reports Trump campaign had WikiLeaks sneak peek. This is a headline from Fox News. You might recall WikiLeaks had a massive email dump on September 13th of 2016. CNN reported that a Trump fan had emailed the campaign to let them know of the email dump on September 4th. But when you look at the email, it was actually sent on September 14th, 1 day after the WikiLeaks dump. So this person was not giving the Trump campaign inside information on these WikiLeaks emails. At number 2, ABC demotes Brian Ross after bungled report on Trump, Russia. On live TV, Brian Ross reported that Michael Flynn was going to testify that Donald Trump ordered him to make contact with the Russians over foreign policy matters while Trump was still a candidate. This would suggest that there was collusion between Trump and the Trump campaign and Russia. Ross sent the stock market crashing 350 points shortly after the announcement. And coming in at number 1, folks, the New York Times economist Paul Krugman says markets will never recover from Trump. Dow hits record high. This was an article published by the Daily Caller on November 9th, 2016, the day after Donald Trump was elected president. On that day, the Dow closed at a new record high, 18,613.52 points. Now just look where we've came since then, folks. In 1 year, well, a little over a year, but 1 year into Trump's presidency, the Dow is now at 26,000 points. That's 8,000 points higher than the day after Trump was elected. He fooled all of these left-wing economists. Now, Trump also had an 11th fake news award that goes out to the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, just to put some icing on the cake. Now, Trump also released 10 positive news stories about his first year in office. These are stories the liberal mainstream media won't talk about. Number 1, the economy has created nearly 2 million jobs and gained over $8 trillion in wealth since the president's inauguration. Number 2, African Americans and Hispanics are enjoying the lowest unemployment rate in recorded history. Number 3, the president signed historic tax cuts and relief for hardworking Americans not seen since President Reagan. Number 4, President Trump's plan to cut regulations has exceeded 2 out for every 1 in mandate, issuing 22 deregulatory actions for every 1 new regulatory action. Number 5, the president has unleashed an American energy boom by ending Obama-era regulations, approving the Keystone Pipeline, auctioning off millions of new acres for energy exploration, and opening up Anwar in Alaska for drilling. Number 6, ISIS is in retreat, having been crushed in Iraq and Syria. Number 7, President Trump followed through on his promise to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel and instructed the State Department to begin to relocate the embassy. Number 8, with President Trump's encouragement, more member nations are now paying their fair share for the common defense in the NATO alliance. Number 9, President Trump signed the Veterans Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act to allow senior officials in the VA to fire failing employees and establishes safeguards to protect whistleblowers. And at number 10, President Trump kept his promise and appointed Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch to the United States Supreme Court. So Trump certainly has had a very successful first year as president. Most of it were things that he was able to do on his own through executive action. The Congress, I'll be honest with you folks, really let the president down this year. They certainly failed on repealing Obamacare. They were successful in repealing the individual mandate and tying that into the tax plan. And they certainly were able to get the tax plan passed through the Congress, and President Trump quickly signed it. And it's been a big success story ever since. We're starting to see many companies announce that they're giving bonuses and pay increases to employees. They're hiring new employees. They're investing in businesses, taking money from overseas, that repatriated money, bringing it back to America. I'll have a story with some details of an announcement from Apple yesterday in which they're hiring new employees, bringing in billions of dollars to invest in this country. It's absolutely amazing. But before we move on, I want to remind everyone to please check out the Southern Conservative Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/Southern Conservative. That's facebook.com/Southern Conservative. There you will find links from conservative news outlets on stories you probably won't hear in the mainstream media. You'll also find a link to each podcast in the news feed. Be sure to also subscribe to this YouTube channel so you'll be alerted each time a new podcast has been posted. Remember, new podcasts are posted daily, Monday through Thursday. Now, one big story that I've left out all week from these podcasts is Trump-Russia collusion and the real collusion going on with top executives at the FBI, the sham investigation headed up by Robert Mueller, and all the ties to the Obama administration and the Hillary Clinton campaign. Well, there have been several interesting articles that have been published just in the last several days. Sarah Carter reports that Fusion GPS is continuing to do opposition research against Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to lay out for you folks the entire Fusion GPS story and all of the players involved, all the connections in the FBI with Hillary Clinton, etc. Now, the big question is, why would Fusion GPS continue to conduct opposition research? What are they looking into? Who's paying for this research? Now's a great time to go back and review the whole Fusion GPS Trump dossier scandal, because this is a big scandal, folks, and it's just one of many scandals that's currently being investigated. Whether it's James Comey letting Hillary Clinton off the hook for having an unsecured email server in which she had classified information on that server and mishandled classified emails, whether it's looking into the Clinton Foundation in pay for play, whether it's the Uranium One scandal, and that certainly involves Hillary Clinton. All sorts of scandals that are going on. You'll recall that Donna Brazile, in her book, which she recently published, said that the Democratic National Committee was broke under President Obama. Hillary Clinton was bankrolling the DNC and calling the shots as to how the money was going to be spent. Well, it's been revealed that Clinton and the DNC hired Mark Elias, a lawyer at the law firm Perkins Coie. He's the man who also served as general counsel to Hillary's campaign. Well, Mark Elias paid Fusion GPS to conduct opposition research on Donald Trump. Fusion GPS, in turn, hired former MI6 spy Christopher Steele. He's the one that winds up producing this salacious dossier that's absolutely jam-packed full of lies and Russia propaganda. Well, Glenn Simpson, who is a co-founder of Fusion GPS, testified back in August before a Senate committee about the dossier. He said that the FBI believed Christopher Steele because the Bureau had a human source from within the Trump circle that could corroborate a lot of the things that was in the dossier. He later said he misspoke and said that he was referring to George Papadopoulos. Now, before I get to George Papadopoulos, as it turns out, Glenn Simpson was unable to verify anything in the dossier. And the only thing that we've been able to verify in the dossier is that George Papadopoulos took a trip to Moscow. And that's all we know. So who is George Papadopoulos? Well, he was a volunteer in the Trump campaign. And as the story goes, and you'll see why I put it that way in a moment, as the story goes, in April 2016, Papadopoulos met with a London professor by the name of Joseph Mifsud, who told him that the Russian government had thousands of Clinton emails. Well, 1 month later, in May 2016, Papadopoulos is drunk in a bar in London talking to Alexander Downer, who just so happens to be the Australian ambassador to the United Kingdom. Papadopoulos tells Downer that the Russian government has obtained emails from the Clinton campaign. Well, in July 2016, after the WikiLeaks emails started to come out, the Australian government decides to inform the FBI of what Papadopoulos had told the ambassador at the bar. So if you look at this, folks, if you look between this professor in London telling Papadopoulos that the Russian government's had thousands of Clinton emails, Papadopoulos then tells this to Alexander Downer, who tells the Australian government, who then tells the FBI, folks, this is fourth-hand hearsay. Fourth-hand hearsay. You have no way to determine the accuracy of any of these statements. And we don't even know if what the London professor told Papadopoulos in the beginning was even truthful. Now, David Ignatius at the Washington Post recently posted a column in which he says an FBI agent in October 2016 met with Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier, to discuss findings in the Trump-Russia investigation. Now, this is absolutely incredible, folks. It ought to raise some red flags with everybody. Why in the world is the FBI communicating with the author of the dossier, which at this point in time, the FBI is aware that the dossier exists because it was around this time that the FBI secured a FISA warrant because of the dossier. They took the dossier to a FISA court. They secured a FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign and later his transition team. So let's just go through that again. Sarah Carter has confirmed that the dossier that Christopher Steele produced was used, at least in part, back in October of 2016 to obtain a FISA court warrant. Well, this opens up the story to a whole new level of corruption because by doing that, you're weaponizing the federal government to do domestic spying on an opposition party during a presidential election. That's absolutely undermining our democratic electoral process, and that, folks, is real collusion. Now, anyway, the FBI asked Steele if he knew of Papadopoulos, and Steele replied that he had not. This is absolutely amazing, again, folks, that the FBI is sharing information with the person who's conducting the opposition research. How the hell is that not collusion? Now, Byron York, over at the Washington Examiner, had a piece out recently in which he claims the dossier was circulated through the State Department. Now, of course, we know that Hillary Clinton headed up the State Department under Barack Obama from 2009 to 2013. and she took her classified information with her, kept it on an unsecured homebrewed server after she left the State Department. Well, guess who also has connections to the State Department, folks? Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier. Well, Byron York raises the possibility that Steele may very well have published other dossiers and suggests that they may have made their way into the State Department. Byron York is also concerned what relations certain individuals within the State Department might have had with Christopher Steele. Now you couple this with another story that Sarah Carter published recently, in which she says the FBI interviewed a close confidant to Hillary Clinton, none other than Sidney Blumenthal. Now, he was interviewed sometime in 2016 by the FBI about the dossier published by Christopher Steele. Now, you have to remember, folks, Blumenthal is very tight with Hillary Clinton. Politico reports that the Clinton Foundation was paying Blumenthal $10,000 a month for providing Hillary Clinton foreign policy advice, as well as what has been described as regular, vaguely sourced intelligence cable-style briefings. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Now, what has started out as a trickle in this whole scandal is starting to pick up speed, and I believe that it's going to continue picking up speed throughout 2018. And hopefully sometime this year, we'll get to the bottom of all these scandals, and hopefully some people will be prosecuted for actively trying to take down the Trump campaign through a coordinated effort by different parts of the Obama administration. And the most serious thing in this whole scandal is the fact that the dossier, which is absolutely salacious, absolutely fake, absolutely filled with Russian propaganda, was presented to the FBI, and the FBI in turn took that to a FISA court, obtained a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign and later his transition team after he won the election. It's absolutely insane. Well, Apple had some very good news yesterday, and I want to sum up a report from ATR.org. That's Americans for Tax Reform. It's a site I mentioned yesterday. You can go there and you can look up all these companies that will be providing bonuses to employees, pay raises, and so forth as a result of Trump's tax plan. So here's the report from ATR. It's from a variety of sources, so some of this information will be repeated. Apple is going to give $2,500 in employee bonuses in the form of restricted stock units. $30 billion in additional capital expenditures over the next 5 years will be spent. 20,000 new employees will be hired. There will be increased support of coding education in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and increased support for U.S. manufacturing. As far as the bonuses go, Apple Incorporated told employees Wednesday that it's issuing a bonus of $2,500 worth of restricted stock units following the introduction of the new U.S. tax law, according to people familiar with the matter. The iPhone maker will begin issuing stock grants to most employees worldwide in the coming months, said the people who asked not to be identified because they were not authorized to speak publicly. The move comes on the same day Apple said it would bring back most of its cash from overseas and spend $30 billion in the United States over the next 5 years, funding an additional technical support campus, data centers, and hiring 20,000 new employees. Apple confirmed the bonuses in response to a Bloomberg inquiry on Wednesday. Apple expects to invest over $30 billion in capital expenditures in the United States over the next 5 years and create over 20,000 new jobs through hiring at existing campuses and opening a new campus. Building on the initial success of the Advanced Manufacturing Fund announced last spring, Apple is increasing the size of the fund from $1 billion to $5 billion. The fund was established to support innovation among American manufacturers and help others establish a presence in the United States. It is already backing projects with leading manufacturers in Kentucky and rural Texas. Apple works with over 9,000 American suppliers, large and small businesses in all 50 states. And each of Apple's core products relies on parts or materials made in the United States or provided by U.S.-based suppliers. Apple, which has a 40-year history in education, also plans to accelerate its efforts across the United States, in support of coding education, as well as programs focused on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So it's pretty incredible, folks. And there are many other companies that are doing the exact same thing, just not on the scale that Apple is. But there are many employees in many companies that are going to receive wage increases. They're going to see bonuses. Companies are going to hire new employees. They're going to expand business in this country. They're going to take money from overseas, dump it into this country to invest in business. It's absolutely incredible. Now, there's one more story I want to get to, folks, before we wrap it up this week, and that's concerning DACA. Now, as far as DACA goes and whether the government will be shut down midnight on Friday, I don't know. Now, I don't have a problem with the government shutting down. You'll remember the last time it shut down in 2013 when Obama was president. Workers were furloughed. They got their back pay when the government reopened. It was nothing more than a glorified vacation. But it's the way in which the government might be shut down that should disturb everyone. The Democrats are willing to shut down the government if they don't get amnesty for the Dreamers. They would rather shut it down, cutting off certain services to American citizens, cutting off funding to the military, because they're trying to give legalization and citizenship to illegal immigrants. Now think about that, folks. The Democrats are prioritizing illegal immigrants over legal citizens. Now, the bottom line is we need border security first before we can deal with the DACA recipients. Without border security, you'll continue to incentivize legal immigration to America, undermining our legal immigration system. And eventually, you'll find yourself right back where we were about 30 years ago when the last time we granted amnesty in 1986 under Ronald Reagan. The promise was, we'll give you amnesty if we get border security. Well, we got the amnesty and we never got the border security. And so we continue to have just a flood of illegal immigrants the last 30 years. And look where we're at today. We can't make the same mistake. We can't just give legalization out to everyone either. We have to check their backgrounds. We have to make them pay fines for breaking the law, etc. If a DACA recipient's committed a felony in my eyes, they ought to be deported, or at least deportation should be on the table. They shouldn't be allowed to stay in America if they've committed a felony. Now, you can give them a permanent work visa, but you can't give them citizenship, and I wouldn't give them citizenship unless they leave the United States first, get in the back of the line, like all of those who have paid thousands of dollars and have waited years to become legal citizens the right way. So anyway, folks, those are just some of my thoughts. And that's going to wrap it up for this week. We crammed a lot into this podcast in a little over 20 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed the first week of these podcasts here at the Southern Conservative, and I look forward to bringing more podcasts with you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.